Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Mao Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Vṛndāvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Askatyadi Satarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasani Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna. Well, looks like another busy day coming up, and somehow or other I'm getting these 16 done. It was up till midnight last night trying to. It was like 11:59 p.m. when I finally got through the 16th round. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Hare Krishna, to be able to actually just sit down and chant good, attentive rounds. It's not like when the stuff isn't going on, then you're free. No, because it's still floating around in your mind. You can't clear it out. At least me, it's still floating around in there. All the interactions. So even if I'm sitting alone, if there's been all these there's all these voices of this one saying that, and that one saying this, and the other one, and it's all still floating around in there. It takes a while for it to settle out. And so 11:59 p.m. finally got 16th round. Hare Krishna. So today's going to still be a lot of it's settling, but there's still a lot of stuff going on. Hare Krishna. So I wanted to. I was realizing how important not only the chanting is to me personally, but also being able to, like this is an online journal. This is my diary. Instead of writing a journal, this is an online, my personal experiences, realizations. This is my journal. It's a video journal. And how that's really important too, to me. And it gives me a chance to process and speak as if writing out, instead of just having everything all floating around. It never. But when you either write it out or speak it out, it has more potency to it, whatever realizations might be coming. Last night, I attended a session online where the topic was global warming in terms of Krishna consciousness. What is our understanding? Hey, Hare Krishna, Hare Ho. So the discussion was, how does that fit in the Krishna conscious situation? This very heated topic, global warming. And so the devotees were looking at it from different angles. And it was interesting, the discussion. See, I want to repeat it because then I've got it. If I can repeat it 3 times, then it never goes away. That's the way it works. If you repeat something 3 times, you've got it. So this is a chance for me to try to hold on to this nice realizations that came out last night. And part of it was how these are all reactions. This is all retaliation by the earth. The earth is retaliating for all the sinful activities. So the virus and the global warming and the droughts and the fires and all these things. The Old Testament in the Judeo-Christian culture deals with these things, like practically every chapter there's a new, because of deviations. It's not that, it was another interesting aspect to it, is that it's not that God is just vindictive, it's He owns everything. Everything belongs to Him, and He wants it managed a certain way. He owns it. It's His. He owns it. And when it's abused or misused, then, He's not happy, because everything belongs to Him. It's actually part of Him. So there's reactions. Hey Lance, Hare Krishna. You are. Thanks for stopping by. Hare Krishna. Yeah, the session last night, the topic, a lot of nice lights came out, was Krishna Consciousness and this really hot topic, global warming. How does that all fit? So it started off with how, things like global warming and all the disturbances that we see on the planet is because of mismanagement. Because Krishna owns everything, and it's not being used the way He would like it to be used. It's His, it belongs to Him, and it's being abused, it's being exploited, and there's reactions for this, which that made sense. Yes, of course, that makes sense. But then one of the devotees asked the question, why is it sometimes, or practically most of the time, the reaction for the deviation or the misuse or the sinful activity doesn't come very quickly? It can come in another lifetime. And so making the connection between what somebody did that caused a disturbance, it can hardly be related at all to the reaction. Because reaction can come in another lifetime and you've already forgotten what you did. You don't even know what it was you did wrong, and here's a reaction. So that was a good question. Why is it like that? Why wouldn't it be more advantageous to, if you do something wrong, to get the reaction right away so you could relate the two and learn something? So why does the reaction come so disguised? There has to be a reaction. So I was really curious to see what they did with that one, because that's a good question. Why? So what they came up with is the mentality of the conditioned soul is they don't want to be corrected. They have a desire to exploit. And if they got the reaction right away, it would spoil it for them. They want to continue in illusion. And if every time, they did something, they got a reaction right, it would spoil the party. That's why everybody's come here to this material world to begin with. It's to forget Krishna. It's to exploit His energies. That's why everybody's come here. So Krishna supplies, okay, here's a facility, you can be an illusion, and you can be so much an illusion that you won't even understand the problems you're causing for yourself, because then you wouldn't be able to enjoy your minuscule deviations. How far out is that? Now that makes sense too, doesn't it? If you want to be an illusion, you've come here, and then every time you try to do something, you get a slap. Hey, it's like, that's not why I came here. I came here to forget you. Okay, but you got to get a slap. But we'll get your reaction so far away from what you just did that you won't be able to even make sense of it, and you can continue to try to... That was good, huh? Yeah, that makes sense. You come here to be an illusion. You don't want to be corrected every time you turn around. Only those who have had enough, And the question is, the beginning of spiritual life is, why am I suffering? What are these reactions? Then the lessons can begin. But if somebody doesn't ask that question, they don't want to know. They don't care if they're suffering. They'll figure it out. But when somebody asks that question, they've had enough. They've just had enough. And they say, why? Why did I, this happen? Or why did my family life fall apart? Or why did I get this disease? Or why did I lose all my money? Why am I so unhappy? Why do I feel lonely? Why? They start to ask. Okay, now we can help them put 1 and 1 equals 2. Now they're ready to be able to start make the connections. Their intelligence is starting to activate a little bit when they ask why. Until they do that, hey, just keep going. Dig the hole deeper. You can go all the way to Patala Loka if you want. Never ask why. So it was a good discussion. That was one thing that came out. And the other was the devotees were finding these different quotes where Prabhupada was saying about the meat eating. He said a number of times in a number of situations that if they just stopped doing that one thing, the entire planet would change. Just that one thing, the cow. They would stop eating the cows. The entire planet would change drastically for the better. Just that one thing alone. You just closed the slaughterhouses. Prabhupada wanted Varnashram to be established because that's central to Varnashram is cow protection. Cows and Brahmins. Those horrible Brahmins that simply follow rules and regulations. The entire planet would change. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jai Lance, he's got a comment here. Yeah, I remember hearing that also. He says, my binoculars here. Hare Krishna. So this is Lance. He says, we have become extremely dumbed down since the beginning of the Yuga, which started 5,000 years ago. Now we are using only 10% of our brain, and it's getting lesser as time goes on. But here we are, born late. Hare Krishna. I think we're just in time. I think we're just in time. Yeah. There are trees in India that are still living that Lord Chaitanya sat under. You know, I think we're just in time. I think we're good. I think we're catching it. Yeah. So there was something else that came out, because when they started to get on this topic of the degradation of human society, and one of the devotees brought out, see, these sessions, these people are really, I really get enlivened by hearing their discussions. Every now and then I have 2 cents, but these are the heavy hitters. So this was one of the ladies, and she was saying how sense gratification, the way sense gratification works is it's okay for a little while, but then it needs to be increased in order to get the same kind of thrill. We see that with like substances, like drugs or alcohol or whatever. You drink a little bit and it's nice, but then in order to get that same relief or that same intoxicated feeling, you have to take a little more each time. And then you have to take more. And then pretty soon, it's not enough. You need more and more and more and more to get the same kind of feeling you got when you first took that first little sip or that little hit, whatever. You need more. The sense gratification's like that. And she was saying how she's seeing that's going on on the planet. It's not that there wasn't like all these sinful activities going on, but they were kind of hidden and they were in the dark and people did them. It wasn't mainstream. It was shh. But now it's out in the open and it's kind of accepted. You know, it's in the movies, it's in the music, it's just part of life. So in order to get more of a thrill, it's just kind of like normal now. In order to get that thrill or that rush, got to do something even more sinful. It has to be, the ante has to be upped. You have to up the ante. And it's, yeah, I think her observation is good. That you have to do worse things to get the same kind of. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. So that's going on. It's described that, you know, as Kali Yuga progresses, cannibalism, it's going on now. Shh, quiet. But it will, you know, come out more. Hare Krishna. What's for dinner? Well, I invited so-and-so. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So it got, the whole session got so, like, everyone was becoming so miserable, taking a good look at what was going on and the degradation, and it's accelerated. And so is Krishna, the movement, Krishna conscious movement is also accelerating. It's like polarizing. You know, the really bad stuff is increasing, and at the same time there's more and more Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's like polarizing. So one of the devotees, he was talking about how he had a friend a few years ago, an Indian from India, Indian heritage, and he's a devotee, initiated disciple, he's part of the movement. And his mother came from a remote village in India to visit him in America. Well, it was a big shock, you know. And they went shopping in the supermarket, and she looked at the meat counter, you know, the freezers, they have those big, and she said, "What's that?" She's from a village in India, she didn't know what it was. She says, "What's that?" And he had to tell her. He said, "Mother, it's cow's meat." She started to cry. She started to cry. So, and when the devotee that was relating the story related this, he started to cry. And I'm just thinking about it, and I'm starting to cry. Because along with that very simple incident comes a realization of how far everything has gone. It's gone to hell. How far it's gone away from actual civilized human society. It's gone so far away. That poor simple Indian lady, devotee, was crying. She could understand how degraded this whole Western, not just Western, it's everywhere. So those were some of the highlights of, there was a lot going on in the discussion, but those are some of the highlights. And I wanted to speak them so that they become more firmly fixed for me. I wanted to, because I want to hold on to these. These are valuable insights for me. Valuable. So, I don't know, maybe sharing them. Hare Krishna. Okay. Lance is typing away here. And now he says, this is Lance Perot, he says, just in time. Krishna is never late. We search for understanding. And here we are approaching the end of our life. This life. Yeah, just in time. So yesterday somebody asked, what's this? Because devotees carry like deities and different things around their neck, They say, what's this? What, like, you want to see my deity? It's a clock. Krishna. Krishna. Yeah. And, like the Gopis said, or Krishna said when he was preparing to rasa dance, there's no time like the present. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Yeah, so I'm going to start working on my rounds some more before it gets busy again today. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So this is the fourth victim who has tried to take shelter in my trailer. Over the last year, I realize now there's 4 different devotees that have been in transition, actually 5, but one was a couple, so we'll say 4, and that have been in transition and found themselves, faced with having to live in their car or under a overpass or something, just circumstance of life, and have sought shelter in the trailer. So this is the 4th victim. She's doing pretty well. They all have lots of stuff. Jeez. And I know what happens when they're in transition. When they leave at least half of it here, and I gotta clean it up. So, that's... Now this is the 4th one. She's doing pretty well. Yeah, she's feeling better. She has her own little space. She's got a hot plate. She doesn't have anybody, pestering her, expecting her to do anything. She's feeling a little relief back there, relaxing, chanting, and trying to see what her next step is for trying to get back to her country. How to do that. So, okay. I wondered what is that trailer? It's a piece of junk, really. It's a very old trailer. It's clean, but it's like, why did I do that? it was a big endeavor. I built a shelter over it, and a deck. I said, why am I doing this? But I'm remembering now, Prabhupada said, if you build a bird's nest, a bird will come and live in it. So it's a bird's nest. And these people are stuck in, they all seem to be stuck in the same kind of situation. They find themselves kind of strapped for funds. They don't know, they've got to find shelter. They're trying to find shelter here and there, and it's not working out. And they just need a break, So I guess I'm in that situation where I can do that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Build it and they would come. Yeah, bird's nest. I think that's what... Let me read your other comment here. What are you saying? You have good stuff. You're right on the... You're on the money, Lance. Build it and they will come. Yeah, I think that was Prabhupada's idea about the temples. Because he was sitting in Mayapur and they had a little hut. And he was very peaceful. Lord Chaitanya's birth, Mayapur, Hare Krishna, everything Hare Krishna, Kirtan. And he was sitting with some disciples and he said, we're perfectly fine. And they were discussing Krishna Consciousness, just sitting here in this very simple way. He says, we're fine. He says, no problem for us. He said, but the people won't come. This is a preaching movement, and they won't come. They need, a big temple and a big festivals, and they need big this and big that. They need that. So, they're attracted, they'll come. They need the planetarium, Temple of the Vedic Planetarium. It's probably one of the most impressive, spiritually energized structures and compounds that's being created since the pyramids. I mean, it's going to outdo the, what's the thing in Rome, with the Catholic thing? I mean, this is a one-upman thing that's going on there. This is, woohoo. So he wanted that. He says they'll come. And if they come, they'll have a chance to hear something about Krishna. They'll have a chance. I think that was his idea. He was building fancy bird's nests with Krishna in it already. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I'm just looking at these things. It's kind of funny sometimes to see things like in that way. But Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. How about a little Krishna bug before I go hand-to-hand combat battle with Maya? That she tries to distract me from chanting. Now it's not just being distracted by my mind. Isn't that bad enough? But by people calling on the phone, and this one needs that, and this one and the other one, and I don't have any milk, can you take me shopping? And so I have to do this hand-to-hand combat with Maya. Krishna. Okay, let's get a little ammo here. Oh no, what did I do? Different glasses, what happened to them? They were just here a second ago, right? Go through this all day. Where's my glasses? Alright, Krishna. I know they're here. Ah! Okay. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is the 10th canto, summary study by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. This is Lord Krishna and Balarāma meet the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana. So there's a solar eclipse, and everyone, all the great sages and demigods and everybody, residents of Dwarka, residents of Vṛndāvana, all the different kings of all the different, everyone's come because it's a very rare event, this particular solar eclipse. And they've all assembled at Kurukshetra. This is before the battle. And so the residents of Vṛndāvana, everybody, it's years later, and Krishna's now a king in Dwarka, and he has 16,108 queens, and palaces, and armies, and advisors. I mean, he's taken his position in the royal order of things. But he's meeting his childhood mother and father and friends. They've all come. But everybody's older now. The Gopis are there. They're all matured. They were they were young girls then. They're all mature. And everyone's meeting Krishna again. And Krishna's speaking to them. He's actually talking to the Gopis here. Krishna was sitting with Mother Yasoda and his other mothers, Devaki and Rohini. So everybody's all sitting together. This is really the way it is in Krishna consciousness. Everyone's different, but because Krishna's the center, everyone is loving Krishna, and so everyone is harmonious with everyone else. It's not like Mother Yasoda has a bone to pick with Mother Devaki. It's Hare Krishna. No. They're all sitting with Krishna. And they have their different relationships with Krishna. And they're appreciating each other's relationship with Krishna. So Krishna was sitting with Mother Yasoda and his other mothers, Devaki and Rohini. But when the mothers engaged in talking, he took the opportunity and went to a secluded place to what? Meet the Gopis. As soon as he approached the Gopis, the cowherd girls, the Lord began to smile, and after embracing them and inquiring about their welfare. Now this is the same Krishna that danced with them in the moonlight when they cheated their husbands. And now he's a king, and he's embracing them. He began to encourage them, saying, they had this illicit affairs, transcendental illicit affairs. Now he's a king. He's saying, my dear friends, you know that both Lord Balarāma and myself left Vṛndāvana just to please our relatives and family members. Thus, we were long engaged in fighting with our enemies, and were obliged to forget you. You, who were so much attached to me in love and affection. I can understand that by this action I have been ungrateful to you, but still I know you are faithful to me. May I inquire if you have been thinking of us, although we had to leave you behind? My dear Gopis, do you now dislike remembering me, considering me to have been ungrateful to you? Do you take my misbehavior with you very seriously? After all, you should know it was not my intention to leave you. Our separation was ordained by Providence. You know, we read this before, but Hare Krishna. We're reading it again. Our separation was ordained by Providence. Yeah, right. Providence. who, after all, is the supreme controller and does as he desires, he causes the intermingling of different persons and again disperses them as he desires. Krishna is so complex. He's very complex. And yet he's very simple. But he's so complex. He's talking about himself. And not only that, he's talking to himself. Because the gopis are his energy. They're his expansions of Radharani. They're his devotional energy. He's actually talking to himself. An expansion of himself. He's so complex. Sometimes we see, so he's talking like this. Sometimes we see that due to the presence of clouds and strong winds, atomic particles of dust and broken pieces of cotton are intermingled together. And after the strong wind subsides, all the particles of dust and cotton are again separated, scattered in different places. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the creator of everything. The objects of which we see are different manifestations of his energy. Krishna! Oh my goodness! By his supreme will, we are sometimes united and sometimes separated. We can therefore conclude that ultimately we're absolutely dependent on his will. Fortunately, you have developed loving affection for me, which is the only way to achieve the transcendental position of association with me. Any living entity who develops such unalloyed devotional affection for me certainly at the end goes back to home, back to Godhead. In other words, unalloyed devotional service and affection for me are the cause of supreme liberation. He continues, my dear Gopi friends, you may know from me that it is my energies only which are acting everywhere. Take, for example, an earthen pot. It is nothing but a combination of earth, water, air, fire, and sky. It is always of the same physical composites, whether in its beginning, during its existence, or after its annihilation. When it's created, the earthen pot is made of earth, water, fire, air, and sky. While it remains, it is the same in composition. And when it's broken and annihilated, its different ingredients are conserved in different parts of the material energy. That's like that first initial Upanishad. Let the air be returned to the totality of air, let the water be, it breaks down, all the different components are merged into the total energy. Similarly, all the creation of this cosmic manifestation during its maintenance and after the dissolution, everything is but a different manifestation of my energy. And because the energy is not separate from me, it is to be concluded that I am existing in everything. In the same way, the body of a living being is nothing but a he's talking about material body, a composition of the 5 elements. And the living entity embodied in the material condition is also part and parcel of me. So there's 2 things here. There's the body, all those components, they all belong to Krishna, the earth, air, water, fire, ether, mind, telescope. They're all his energies. It's just a different type of energy. And the living entity in the body is also part and part. You're also my energy. It's just you're a different type of energy. You're also part and parcel of me. The living entity is imprisoned in the material condition on account of his false conception of himself as the supreme enjoyer. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Yeah, it's described that because we are just like Krishna spiritually, in quality, we have that desire to be the supreme enjoyer, but we don't have the quantity. We're teeny tiny little parts and parcels. So we have that desire to be it. We want to be it, the controller, without the big connection here, without Krishna. We just want to. So that's a false conception of the self as the supreme enjoyer. This false ego of the living entity is the cause of his imprisonment in material existence. As the supreme absolute truth, I am transcendental to the living entity as well as to his material embodiment. So I'm the absolute truth and I'm transcendental to both the energies. The two energies, material and spiritual, are both acting under my supreme control. My dear Gopis, I request that instead of being so afflicted, you try to accept everything with a philosophical attitude. Then you will understand that you are always with me and that there is no cause of lamentation in our being separated from one another. Now Prabhupada speaks. He says, this important instruction of Lord Krishna's to the Gopis can be utilized by all devotees engaged in Krishna consciousness. The whole philosophy is considered on the basis of inconceivable, simultaneous oneness and difference. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he is present everywhere in his impersonal feature. Everything is existing in him, but still, he is not personally present everywhere. So that's oneness and difference simultaneously. The cosmic manifestation is nothing but a display of Krishna's energy. And because the energy is non-different from the energetic, nothing is different from Krishna. When this absolute consciousness, Krishna consciousness, is absent, we're separated from Krishna. But fortunately, if this Krishna consciousness is present, then we're not separated from Krishna. The process of devotional service is the revival of Krishna consciousness. And if the devotee is fortunate enough to understand that the material energy is not separated from Krishna, then he can utilize the material energy and its products in the service of the Lord. But in the absence of Krishna consciousness, the forgetful living entity, although part and parcel of Krishna, falsely puts himself in the position of enjoyer of the material world, and being thus implicated in material entanglement, is forced by the material energy to continue his material existence. Life after life after life after life after. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Although a living entity is forced to act by material nature, he falsely thinks he is the all in all and the supreme enjoyer. If the devotee knows perfectly well that the Archa Vigraha, or the deity form of the Lord in the temple, is exactly the same Satchidananda Vigraha as Krishna himself, then his service to the temple deity becomes direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Oh, those stupid Brahmins. I don't think so. Not according to Prabhupada. If he can see that that deity, that's an incarnation of Krishna, and is exactly Krishna himself, incarnated, then his service to the temple deity becomes direct service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not like everybody's going to serve like that, but those devotees that are, they're in a pretty good spot. You get to serve Krishna directly. Now Krishna is also in his holy name, and a devotee who can see or knows that Krishna's in, and they're chanting Hare Krishna, they're also serving Krishna directly, because the holy name of the Lord is an incarnation in sound, and the deity in the temple is an incarnation in stone, wood, or marble, or whatever. So Krishna is Krishna. These things are not made of material energy, they're spiritual. Krishna, actually Krishna. So one who can see the deity is Krishna and takes that as his service to Krishna, to serve the deity in the temple, and understands that that's actually Krishna. There's not material elements. Then he can, by his service, directly serve Krishna. Similarly, the temple itself, that's why Prabhupada, he established so many temples. I think he did 108 temples in just a matter of a few years. Everywhere he went, he was installing deities. In Australia, evidently at the time, the devotees, their standards weren't very good for being on time and cleanliness. They were a little covered over like that. But they were enthusiastic and sincere, but they were a little sloppy and dirty, and stuff going on there that needed to get fine-tuned for serving a deity in a temple. So Prabhupada stayed for a while, he installed the deity, and he said he spoke to Krishna in his deity form. He said, "Oh, my dear Lord, I'm praying, that please, they're doing the best they can, but you'll just take care of yourself, okay? You please take care of yourself. They're not really at a point right now where they can really take very nice care of you, so please, you take care of yourself." Something like that. I'd love to find the exact quote, but that was the idea. It's the way I always heard it related. Yes, Krishna, they're doing the best they can, but you're still going to have to more or less take care of yourself. Okay, a little more about Krishna and his deity. Now the temple itself, the temple paraphernalia, and the food offered to the deity are also not separate from Krishna. One has to follow the rules and regulations prescribed by the acharyas, and thus, under superior guidance, Krishna realization is fully possible, even in this material existence. That can't be minimized. I'm sorry, that cannot be minimized. Hare Krishna. That has to be respected and encouraged. And the devotees that are engaging like that, they have to be offered respect, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And by their service, which is so highly visible, deities and temples, and that is very highly visible, then people in general are attracted. And they have a chance to hear something about Krishna. It's such a wonderful, valuable service, those devotees that are engaging like that. The Gopis have been instructed by Krishna in this philosophy of simultaneous oneness and difference. and they remained always in Krishna consciousness and became liberated from all material contamination. Now that sounds funny because we think, well, the Gopis, maybe how could they have material contamination there? Well, I'm looking at two things. One is Arjuna, who's an eternal associate of Krishna. His pastimes with Krishna are eternal, and he appeared to have succumbed to material contamination. I can't fight with my relatives, and what will happen, and I don't want a kingdom, and I don't see nothing good will come from this. And he seemed to be in a kind of material lamentation because of the material circumstances. That's one way. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to look. There's another way to look at it, but I don't think it's right. Yeah, I'm not going to go there. I think that's off. I think that's the way to understand it. Like Arjuna's lamentation. And then Krishna had to explain to him, show him the universal form, explain to him that, how the different process of yoga, and actually reveal his position so that Arjuna could understand his position, and then he could do his service to Krishna. So it looks like the same kind of thing going. And there's the Bhagavad Gita, and then there's the Gopi Gita. And I'm wondering if this is maybe the Gopi Gita. I think I heard recently that there are 4 different Gitas with the Gopis. I think this sounds like one of the Gitas, a Gopi Gita, where he's revealing his position, their position, in like that. The consciousness of the living entity who falsely presents himself as the enjoyer of the material world is called Jiva Kosha, which means imprisoned by the false ego. Not only the Gopis, but anyone who follows these instructions of Krishna becomes immediately freed from Jiva Kosha, imprisonment. A person in full Krishna consciousness is always liberated from false egoism. He utilizes everything for Krishna's service and is not at any time separated from Krishna. Now the Gopis, after hearing this, after hearing from Krishna, Arjuna said, I fully accept everything that you've said, and I'm prepared to carry on with my service. As distasteful as it is, I'm prepared. So now, after hearing from Krishna, their position, his position, the Gopis therefore prayed to Krishna, Dear Krishna, from your navel emanated the original lotus flower, which was the birth site of Brahma, the Creator. No one can estimate your glories or your opulence, which therefore remain always a mystery, even to the highest thoughtful men, the masters of all yogic power. The conditioned soul falls in the dark well of this material existence. They can very easily, however, take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Thus, deliverance is guaranteed. The Gopis continued, Dear Krishna, we're always busy in our family affairs. We therefore request that you remain within our hearts as the rising sun, and that will be your greatest benediction. So for the Gopis, they weren't soldiers on a battlefield fighting. They were housewives. And their prayer is that you'll always remain within our hearts while we're performing our duties, our service, our household duties. Krishna, that will be your greatest. That's what they all pray. They all pray that whenever Krishna reveals himself to one of his devotees, they all pray that, I don't want anything. I don't care about wherever I am in the material world, doesn't matter. whatever service I'm caught in, whatever birth it is, I don't care. Just always, I always want to remember you, never forget you, and engage in devotional service, hear and chant, remember, worship. They all pray like that. Once they get a taste of Krishna. That's what they. So the Gopis are saying. The Gopis are always liberated souls because they are fully in Krishna consciousness. They only pretended to be entangled in household affairs in Vṛndāvana. In spite of their long separation, the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana, the Gopis, were not interested in the idea of going with Krishna to his capital city, Dwarka. It's the same Krishna. They didn't want to go to Dwarka. They wanted to stay in Vṛndāvana because that's how they know Krishna, in that mood, Vṛndāvana mood. Another interesting aspect here is that the Gopis are all expansions of Radharani for his pleasure. They're all individual, different personalities, but they're all expansions from Radha. And so are the queens in Dwarka. They're all expanded in the mood of Dwarka to accompany Krishna in his Dwarka Lila. So the residents of Vṛndāvana, they don't want to go to, they already went to Dwarka, they already expanded as the queens. Why would she doesn't want to destroy the Vraj mood, the Vṛndāvana mood, so we'll just stay there. They wanted to remain busy in Vṛndāvana and thus feel the presence of Krishna in every step of their lives. They immediately invited Krishna to come back to Vṛndāvana. See, this is the Rath Yatra. This is the enactment of Rath Yatra. They immediately invited Krishna to come back to Vṛndāvana. This transcendental, emotional existence of the Gopis is the basic principle of Lord Chaitanya's teaching. The Rath Yatra festival observed by Lord Chaitanya is the emotional process of taking Krishna back to Vṛndāvana. Srimati Radharani refused to go with Krishna to Dwarka to enjoy his company in the atmosphere of royal opulence, but wanted to enjoy his company in the original Vṛndāvana atmosphere. Lord Krishna, being profoundly attached to the Gopis, never goes away from Vṛndāvana, and the Gopis and other residents of Vṛndāvana remain fully satisfied. In Krishna, Krishna Consciousness. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of Lord Krishna and Balarāma meeting the inhabitants of Vṛndāvana. We're almost to the end of this 10th canto here. The next chapter is Draupadi meets the queens of Krishna. Yeah, they all talk about, all the ladies are sitting and they're all saying how they met Krishna. They're all telling their, how they met Krishna and what happened and like that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Ram. Hare Krishna, Jocelyn. Hope you're doing well. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All right, hand-to-hand combat with Maya now. Try to dodge the interruptions, both the mental ones and the other ones. Hare Krishna.